The city smelled like rain and expensive perfume, but Henry Coulter's knuckles smelled like copper, and he'd never felt more like a good father. The worst decision Henry Coulter ever made as a single father happened on a Tuesday night in downtown Chicago, and was the only reason Irene Holmes lived to see Wednesday. He had exactly $12 in his checking account, 2 kids at home who needed new winter coats, a court date in the morning, and absolutely no business getting involved. But there she was, one woman in a metallic gold dress that caught every streetlight like a distress flare, surrounded by 4 men in navy hoodies who looked like they bench-pressed motorcycles for fun. 30 seconds ago, hitting a stranger in downtown Chicago would have gotten him arrested. Now, the woman in gold was looking at him like he'd just saved the world, and the 4 men were deciding whether their pride was worth another round. His daughter's voice echoed in his head. "Dad, why you always do this?" "Good question, sweetheart." He didn't have an answer then. He still didn't now. But his father once told him something that stuck like a scar. "Son, the moment you stop making bad decisions for good reasons is the moment you stop being human." Henry's fist connected with the jaw of a man twice his size. Everything changed. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel, and it reminds us that hope and second chances are universal languages. Let me tell you something about Henry Coulter that matters. He wasn't a hero. He was a 42-year-old man who worked 2 jobs and still couldn't afford to fix the leak in his bathroom ceiling. The kind of man who ate ramen 3 nights a week, so his kids could have fresh fruit in their lunches. On that Tuesday night, Henry stood in the spin cycle laundromat on West Monroe Street, counting quarters like they were made of gold. $12.75. That was it. That was all that stood between him and Thursday, when his paycheck would finally hit. The washing machines hummed their mechanical lullaby around him. An elderly woman folded towels in the corner. A college kid listened to music, so loud Henry could hear the bass from across the room. Normal people doing normal things. Henry had stopped feeling normal about 3 years ago, right around the time his wife Sarah died and left him holding 2 kids and a mountain of medical debt. He watched his kids' clothes tumble in the dryer. The purple jacket his daughter Emma wore every day, even though it was 2 sizes too small. The Spider-Man shirt his son Tyler refused to take off even to wash it. These were the things that mattered. Not his pride, not his comfort. Just making sure they had clean clothes for school. In my opinion, this is where most people misunderstand poverty. It's not just about money. It's about the math you do in your head at every single moment. Can I afford to take the bus, or should I walk? Can I buy the name brand cereal, or will the kids notice if I get the generic? Can I fix my car, or will I lose my job because I can't get there? Henry had been doing that math for 3 years straight, and he was tired, bone tired. The kind of tired that makes you question every decision you've ever made. But here's the thing about Henry that his late wife Sarah understood better than anyone. He had what she called a moral thermostat. When things got cold and difficult, when life pushed him down, that thermostat kicked in. It made him stand up. It made him care when caring was expensive. He stuffed the clean clothes into a clear plastic bag, because garbage bags were cheaper than a proper laundry basket, and headed out into Chicago night. The rain had started again, that fine mist that soaks you before you realize you're wet. The kind of rain that makes rich people hail cabs and poor people walk faster. Henry walked faster. His route home took him past the nice restaurants, the places where people paid $50 for a steak. He didn't resent them. He just noticed the difference. There's a particular loneliness that comes from walking past windows full of people who will never know your name, who will never count quarters at a laundromat, who will never understand that $12 can be the difference between making it and not making it. His phone buzzed. A text from his daughter, Emma. "Dad, when are you coming home? Tyler won't stop bothering me." He smiled despite himself. Some things were universal, whether you had $12 or 12 million. But then Henry turned the corner onto South Clark Street, and the smile died on his face. Because what he saw next would test every principle his father had ever taught him, would challenge every promise he'd made to his late wife, and would change the trajectory of not just his night, but his entire life. What he saw was the woman in gold. She looked like someone had poured liquid sunlight into human form and dressed it for a gala. The gold dress, and I mean actual metallic gold, the kind that probably cost more than Henry made in 3 months, caught every streetlight, every car headlight, every neon sign. In the gray drizzle Chicago at night, she was a flare. But flares mean distress. Irene Holmes, though Henry didn't know her name yet, stood in the mouth of an alley between a closed coffee shop and a parking garage. Her back was to a brick wall. Her heels were too high for running. Her phone was clutched in her right hand, screen dark, and around her, in a formation that made Henry's stomach turn, stood 4 men in matching navy hoodies. This is where I need you to understand something about predatory behavior in urban environments. These men weren't random. They had chosen their positions with purpose. One directly in front of Irene, blocking the sidewalk. 2 flanking her at 45-degree angles, cutting off lateral movement. 1 behind, controlling the alley exit. It was geometry designed for intimidation. The kind of setup you see in nature documentaries when wolves circle prey. The man in front was doing the talking. Henry couldn't hear the words yet, but he could read the body language, the aggressive lean, the invasion of personal space, the casual cruelty of someone who knows they have all the power and is enjoying it. Henry stopped walking. His laundry bag suddenly felt very heavy. Here's what should have happened next. Henry should have kept walking. He should have called 911. He should have remembered that he had a custody hearing in exactly 11 hours, and that getting involved in a street confrontation would look really bad to a family court judge. He should have thought about his kids. He did think about his kids. That's why he dropped the laundry bag. Because 3 years ago, when Sarah was dying in their bedroom and the medical bills were piling up faster than he could count, she made him promise something. She grabbed his hand with what little strength she had left and said, "Henry, don't let this world make you cold. Don't let our tragedy be your excuse to look away when someone needs help. Promise me you'll still be the man I married." He promised. Now, standing in the rain with $12 in his checking account and a custody hearing looming, Henry Coulter was about to keep that promise. He started walking toward the group, not running, not charging, just walking, steady, purposeful, the way a father walks when checking on a noise in the middle of the night. 20 feet away, he could hear them now. "Come on, beautiful, don't be like that." The leader's voice was smooth, practiced. "We just want to get to know you. Why you gotta be so stuck up? I've asked you to leave me alone." Irene's voice was steady, but Henry heard the tremor underneath, fear pretending to be confidence. "Please just go. Please just go," one of the others mimicked in a high-pitched voice. The group laughed. Hyenas. 15 feet away now. One of them noticed Henry, nudged the others. The geometry shifted, turned toward this new element. 10 feet. Henry could see their faces now. Young, early 20s. The kind of young that still thinks cruelty is funny, that intimidation is power, that there are no consequences. The leader turned fully toward Henry. 6'3", easy. Built like someone who spent serious time in the gym. The kind of build that was meant to intimidate. You got a problem, old man? The leader's voice carried that specific tone that said he'd done this before. Keep walking. This doesn't concern you. Henry stopped, set his laundry bag down carefully, straightened up. Yeah, Henry said quietly. I got a problem. Listen, if you've made it this far in the story, you're invested. You want to know what happens next. But here's the thing. Most people scroll past these stories without subscribing. They watch, they enjoy, and they disappear. If this story matters to you, if you actually care how it ends, hit that subscribe button, please. It takes 2 seconds. And if you don't, you'll probably forget about this channel and never hear any other amazing stories from me. The leader, later Henry would learn his name was Jax, smiled. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a smile of a shark that just realized it's bigger than you thought. You got a problem? Jax took a step forward. Then here's your solution. Old man, turn around. Walk away. Forget you saw anything. Because if you don't... If I don't what? Henry's voice was calm. Too calm. Because here's something Henry learned in his amateur boxing days, back before Sarah, before kids, before medical bills. The loudest guy in a fight is usually the most scared. You'll do what exactly? The group shifted, tightened, pack mentality kicking in. Irene spoke up, her voice urgent. Please, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Henry said, not taking his eyes off Jax. And in my opinion, that's one of the most powerful statements anyone can make. Not, I choose to or I want to, but I have to, because it speaks to something deeper than choice. It speaks to obligation, to character, to the kind of person you are when no one's watching, except people were watching. A couple on the other side of the street, pretending not to notice. A cab driver slowing down, then speeding up when he saw the situation. A world full of witnesses who had all decided this wasn't their problem. But it was Henry's problem now. Jax reached into his hoodie pocket. Henry's body tensed, instinct from 20 years ago flooding back. Weight on the balls of your feet. Hands up, but not threatening. Watch his shoulders, not his hands. The shoulders move first. Last chance, old man, Jack said, pulling his hand halfway out of his pocket. Henry could see something metallic. Heavy. Walk. Away. Henry shook his head slowly. Can't do that. Then you're dumber than you look. That's when the youngest of the four stepped forward, and Henry's world tilted on its axis. The kids had fell back, revealing his face. Brown eyes. Scar above his left eyebrow from when he fell off his bike 2 years ago. The face of a boy Henry had bought lunch for just last week when he saw him sitting outside the corner store, too proud to beg but too hungry to hide it. Marcus. Henry's voice came out as a whisper, but in the sudden silence, it might as well have been a shout. Marcus froze. The recognition in his eyes was immediate, followed by something worse. Shame. Because here's what you need to understand. Henry knew this kid, knew his grandmother, who was raising him alone, knew he'd been getting into trouble at school, knew he was teetering on that edge where kids either fall into the system or pull themselves back. And now here he was on the wrong side of that edge. Mr. Coulter? Marcus's voice cracked. What are you? You need to go. You need to leave. Now. Marcus, what are you doing with these guys? Henry took a step forward and immediately regretted it, because that's when Jax moved. His hand came all the way out of his pocket, and what he held wasn't a knife or a gun. It was something worse, a heavy combination lock attached to a short length of chain, the kind of improvised weapon that leaves permanent damage, the kind that tells you this wasn't his first time. You know this guy, Mark? Jax's voice was sharp. He's nobody, Marcus said quickly. He's somebody who's about to learn a valuable lesson about minding his own business. Jax spun the lock once, testing the weight. The chain whistled through the air. The other two were moving now, spreading out, cutting off angles. Professional. Practice. This was not their first time working as a unit. Henry did the math in his head. 4 against 1. One weapon visible, probably more concealed. At least one Marcus, who might hesitate. That was something. The woman behind them. Trapped. That was everything. His daughter's voice in his head. Dad, why you always do this? Because sometimes, sweetheart, the right thing and the smart thing aren't the same thing. Henry looked into Marcus's eyes one more time. The kid he'd mentored. The kid he'd tried to save from exactly this moment. Marcus, Henry said quietly, urgently, is this who you are now? Is this who you want to be? The youngest boy froze, conflict washing over his face like waves. But the other 3 lunged. Here's what they don't tell you about real fights. They're not like the movies. There's no soundtrack, no slow motion, no dramatic dialogue. There's just violence, consequence, and the split-second decisions that determine who goes home. Jax came in first, swinging the chain in a wide arc aimed at Henry's head. But Henry had seen it coming. You always see the big swing coming. He dropped low, felt the chain whistle over his head close enough to ruffle his hair, and came up inside Jax's guard. First rule of boxing against a bigger opponent. Don't let them use their reach. Henry drove his shoulder into Jax's chest, disrupting his balance. Not a punch. Not yet. Just positional advantage. Buy time. Create space. The one on his left, stocky, built like a fire hydrant, charging low, wrestling move. Henry saw it, pivoted, used the guy's momentum against him, grabbed his hoodie, pulled him off balance, sent him stumbling into a parked car with a metallic thud. 2 down temporarily. 3 to go. No, wait. Marcus was backing up, hands raised but not engaging. Good. 1 small mercy. That left 2 active threats. The third guy, tall and wiry, faster than he looked, came in with a combination. Left jab, right cross, left hook. Someone had taught him to box. But there's a difference between knowing how to throw a punch in a gym and throwing one when adrenaline turns your fine motor skills to mud. Henry slipped the jab, head movement, minimal, don't waste energy, parried the cross, caught the hook on his forearm, felt the impact all the way to his elbow. Then Henry did something that separated amateur boxing from street survival. He hit back, but not where they expected. Body shot, right to the floating rib. The kind of punch that doesn't look dramatic, but steals your breath and your will to fight. The wiry guy folded, gasped, staggered back. But Jax was up again, and he was angry now. The chain came around in a tight, controlled swing, this time at Henry's knees. Aimed to cripple. Henry jumped back, felt his heel hit the curb, almost lost his balance. The chain missed by inches, cracked against the sidewalk with a sound like a gunshot. You're dead, old man. Jax's composure was cracking. Good. Angry fighters make mistakes. Henry's breath was coming hard now. He was 42, not 22. His ribs hurt from an old injury that never quite healed. His hands were already swelling. This had to end soon. But here's the thing about Henry Coulter that made him different from these four. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to protect. And there's a huge psychological difference between those two motivations. When you fight to win, you're thinking about yourself. When you fight to protect, you're thinking about someone else. And that second thing, that makes you dangerous in ways that protein powder and gym time can never match. The stocky one had recovered from the car impact. He pulled something from his pocket, a box cutter. The blade snicked out, caught the streetlight. And that's when Henry made a choice that would haunt him for weeks afterward. He stopped defending and started teaching. Marcus. Henry's voice cut through the chaos. You see this? You see what your friends brought you to? This is who you want to become. Marcus was crying now, tears mixing with rain on his face. Mr. Coulter, please, just go. I go. They hurt her. Henry gestured to Irene, without taking his eyes off the threats. I go. You become someone who stood by while it happened. Is that the man you want to be? The stocky one with the box cutter lunged. Henry sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, twisted, joint lock, something Sarah had made him promise to learn when Emma was born, and the box cutter clattered to the wet pavement. Then Henry did something that shocked everyone. He didn't kick it away. He picked it up, folded it closed, and put it in his own pocket. This doesn't have to escalate, Henry said, addressing all of them now. His voice was calm despite his pounding heart. Right now, this is simple assault, maybe intimidation, but you pull weapons. You cross a line you can't uncross. Think, just think for 1 second. Because here's what I've learned about violence. Most people who threaten it don't actually want to go through with it. They want compliance. They want fear. They want the other person to back down. But when someone refuses to show fear, when someone treats violence as a regrettable but manageable situation rather than catastrophe, it disrupts the script. Jax's hand was shaking around the chain. Henry could see it now, the uncertainty creeping in. Who is she to you? Jax demanded, gesturing at Irene with the chain. Your girlfriend? Your sister? Why you even care? I don't know her, Henry said simply. Never seen her before tonight. Then why? Because she's a person. Henry's voice was firm now, finding its strength. Because she asked you to leave her alone, and you didn't. Because if I don't do something, who will? Marcus here? Your buddies? All these people walking by pretending not to see. He locked eyes with each of them in turn. You want to know the truth? I got 2 kids at home. Got a court date tomorrow morning. Got $12 to my name. I got about 1,000 reasons to walk away. But you know what I also got? A mirror. And I got to look in that mirror tomorrow morning. And every morning after that. And I need to be able to see someone I respect. The wiry guy had recovered his breath. The stocky one was flexing his twisted wrist. Jack still held the chain. But something had shifted. You could feel it in the air, like the pressure change before a storm breaks. Last chance, Jack said, but his voice lacked conviction now. Walk away. Henry shook his head. Make me? But nobody moved. Because making Henry leave would require a level of violence they hadn't committed to. And in that gap between bravado and brutality, Henry saw his opening. He turned slightly, addressing Irene directly for first time. Ma'am, there's a police station 3 blocks north on State Street. I need you to start walking that direction. Don't run. Just walk. I'll be right behind you. I'm not leaving you here, Irene said, her voice stronger now. You're not leaving me. You're trusting me. Henry kept his eyes on the 4 men. Go. Now. She went. Henry heard her heels clicking away on the wet pavement, heard the sound fade, and still the four men stood there, caught between pride and common sense. It was Marcus who broke first. "This is stupid," he said quietly. "Let's just go." "Shut up, Mark." Jack snapped. "No." Marcus's voice was stronger now. "He's right. She's just a person walking home. What are we even doing? We're teaching her a lesson about..." "About what?" Marcus cut him off. "About how tough we are. She already knows that. Whole city knows that. But Mr. Coulter here, he knows something we don't. He knows how to sleep at night." And there it was, the crack in the foundation. Jax looked at his crew, saw the doubt spreading, and made the calculation. This wasn't worth it. This old man with his sad eyes and his quiet courage had somehow made them question themselves, and that was more dangerous than any punch he could throw. "This isn't over," Jack said, pointing the chain at Henry one last time. "Yeah, it is." Henry's voice was tired now. "It's over because you're going to let it be over. Because deep down you know I'm right. And that's going to eat at you. But that's okay. That uncomfortable feeling, that's called conscience. Try listening to it sometime." They left, walked away with as much swagger as they could manage. But they left, and Henry stood there in the rain, shaking, hurting, knowing he just used up about 3 months' worth of luck. He turned to check on Irene and found her standing 20 feet away. She hadn't run. She'd stopped and waited. "You didn't go to the police station," Henry said. "Neither did you," she replied. They stood there in the rain, two strangers who just shared something neither could quite explain. "Thank you," Irene said finally. "That's inadequate, but it's all I have right now." Henry shrugged, wincing as his ribs protested. "You needed help. Most people walked right past. Most people have more sense than me." Henry picked up his laundry bag, now thoroughly soaked. "You should still file a police report. Those guys might come back for someone else." "I will." She paused. "Can I ask you something? Why did you talk to them like that? You could have just fought them." In my opinion, this is the most important question anyone asked Henry that night, because it speaks to the heart of what real courage looks like. "Violence is easy," Henry said, looking at his swollen knuckles. "Anybody can throw a punch. But changing someone's mind, making them question themselves, that's harder. That lasts longer. That boy Marcus, if I had just beat him up, he'd remember me as the guy who hurt him. But this way, maybe he remembers me as the guy who asked him who he wanted to be. Maybe that matters someday." Irene studied him for a long moment. "What's your name?" "Henry Coulter." "Irene Holmes." She extended her hand. He shook it. "I have a feeling I'll see you again, Henry Coulter." "Small city?" he said with a tired smile. Then, because he had to be up in 6 hours, "I should get home. My kids." "You have kids?" "2, 8 and 10. They're why I'm out here doing laundry at 10 p.m. instead of sleeping." Something changed in Irene's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "You're a good father, Henry." "I'm a present father. That's all I know how to be." They parted ways. Henry walked home, put the wet clothes in the dryer again, wasting more quarters, but what choice did he have? And collapsed into bed at midnight. His alarm went off at 6. His body screamed when he stood up. His hands were purple. The custody hearing was at 9. Henry put on his only suit, the one he'd worn to Sarah's funeral 3 years ago. Drank coffee strong enough to strip paint. Tried not to think about how he'd explain the bruises if the judge asked. The courtroom was cold, impersonal, Henry sat at his table, waiting for proceedings to begin, reviewing the case in his mind. His ex-wife's lawyer, actually his late wife's sister's lawyer, was arguing that Henry couldn't provide adequate stability for children, that his financial situation was precarious, that the kids needed a more secure environment. All true, technically, but stability isn't just about money. And Henry had 3 years of proof that love and presence matter more than square footage. The door opened. The opposing counsel walked in. It was Irene Holmes. Henry's jaw dropped. Irene met his eyes across the courtroom, and he saw something there. Not pity, not manipulation, but genuine surprise matched with his own. She approached his table. "Mr. Coulter, you're a lawyer." "Defense attorney, technically, but I do some family law pro bono." She set her briefcase down. "I didn't know it was you. The file just said Coulter custody matter. You're representing my sister-in-law?" "I was." Past tense. She pulled out her phone, typed something, showed him the screen. "As of 2 minutes ago, I've withdrawn from the case. Conflict of interest. I can't represent someone opposing a man who literally put himself in danger to protect me last night." Henry felt the room tilt. "You don't have to." "I'm not doing you a favor, Mr. Coulter. I'm doing what's ethical. There's a difference." She paused. "But while I'm here, let me ask you something. Last night, you told those men you needed to be able to look in a mirror. Can you look in a mirror and honestly tell yourself you're providing the best possible environment for your children?" The question hit harder than any punch from last night. "That's not fair," Henry said quietly. "No, it's not, but it's necessary." Irene's voice was gentle but firm. "You're a good man, Henry. What you did last night proves that. But good men can still need help. Good fathers can still make better choices. You live paycheck to paycheck. You work 2 jobs and barely see your kids. You put yourself in danger last night. What if those men had seriously hurt you? What would your children do then?" Every word was a scalpel, precise and painful. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that real strength isn't just knowing when to fight. It's knowing when to ask for help, when to accept support, when to admit that doing it alone isn't actually the noble choice." Henry felt something crack inside him. The armor he'd built over 3 years of grinding poverty and proud independence. "I don't know how to ask for help." "Yes, you do. You just did." Irene pulled a business card from her pocket. "This is my colleague who specializes in family law. She's excellent. She's affordable, and she understands that custody should be about what's best for children, not punishing parents for being poor. Call her." Henry took the card with trembling hands. "And Henry, that speech you gave last night about the mirror, you should listen to your own advice. Look in the mirror tomorrow morning and ask yourself, am I doing everything I can for my kids? Not everything society expects. Everything I can. And if the answer is no, then change. Not because you're weak, because you're strong enough to admit you need help." She left. The hearing was postponed. Henry sat in the empty courtroom for 20 minutes, holding that business card, crying for the first time since Sarah's funeral. 3 months later, Henry's life looked different. Not perfect, not easy, but different. He called Irene's colleague, filed for proper support from Sarah's life insurance. Money he'd been too proud to claim before. Reduced to 1 job with better hours. Actually saw his kids in the evenings. Started taking them to the park on Saturdays. The small apartment was still small, but it was warmer now, filled with laughter instead of absence. He saw Marcus once at the corner store. The kid looked him in the eye, nodded with respect. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Henry heard later that Marcus had quit hanging out with Jax's crew, was doing better in school. Small victories. And every morning, Henry looked in the mirror. Some days he liked what he saw. Some days he didn't. But he always looked, because that was the real lesson from that rainy Tuesday night. So here's the real question. Did you subscribe yet? Thousands of people will listen to this story and won't subscribe. Please don't be that person. Kindly support what I do here by subscribing. And then drop in the comment section if you like part 2 of Henry's story. What challenges will he face as he rebuilds his life? How will his relationship with his kids evolve? What happened to Marcus? Let me know if you want to hear more. Let me tell you what Henry's story is really about, because it's not just a feel-good tale about a street fight. It's a case study in something psychologists call moral friction, and understanding it might change how you see the world. The bystander effect is real. Study after study shows that the more people witness an emergency, the less likely anyone is to help. Not because people are evil, but because we assume someone else will handle it. We diffuse responsibility. We rationalize. We tell ourselves it's not our problem. Henry Coulter did the opposite. He accepted moral friction, that uncomfortable heat in your chest when you see something wrong. And here's the crucial part. He didn't just act on it impulsively. He calculated the risk. He acknowledged the cost. And he chose to pay it anyway. That's not heroism in the Hollywood sense. That's moral courage in the truest sense. It's the willingness to bear personal cost for principle, to sacrifice comfort for conscience. But the real lesson comes from what Irene taught Henry afterward. Courage isn't just about physical confrontation. Sometimes it takes more courage to ask for help, to admit vulnerability, to accept that doing everything alone isn't strength. It's pride disguised as virtue. In psychology, we call this the self-reliance trap. It's the belief that independence is always superior to interdependence. That asking for help is weakness. That struggling alone is somehow more noble than thriving with support. Henry escaped that trap, not because he wanted to, because Irene forced him to look in a mirror and ask himself the hard question, am I serving my ego or my children? Most people believe courage is the absence of fear, but tonight taught Henry it's actually the presence of moral friction. It's that uncomfortable heat in your chest when you see something wrong. If you ignore it, you go cold. If you act on it, you stay human. The lesson isn't that you should fight 4 men in a dark alley. Please don't do that. The lesson is that the safety and dignity of our community is a shared debt, and sometimes you have to pay an installment when you can least afford it. True strength isn't found in the fist that strikes, but in the back that refuses to turn away, in the voice that asks hard questions, in the mirror that forces you to examine your choices, in the courage to admit when you need help. Henry's $12 didn't change that night. His custody situation didn't magically resolve. His bruised ribs didn't instantly heal, but his understanding of strength did. And that internal shift, that willingness to redefine courage from solitary suffering to supportive resilience, that's what truly saved him. Not from the 4 men in navy hoodies, from himself. The next time you see moral friction, that uncomfortable moment when you witness something wrong, you have a choice. You can let it pass and go cold, or you can act and stay human. The choice defines who you are more than any resume or bank account ever could. Henry chose. Marcus chose. Irene chose. The question is, when the moment comes, what will you choose?